Thank you. It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Of course, of course. I'm super psyched to be here. I mean, I think, podcasts are one of my favorite things, both to listen to and to participate in. In fact, I'm even going to be finally kind of launching my own, saying, all right, let's do this. Let's have
Good.
some. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
excellent. Yeah,
yeah.
you should. I can tell by your energy level, you need to have one out there for sure. So, um, but yeah,
Mm.
let, let's hop in, and I want to begin our conversation with, right now in April, 4 years ago, we were really kind of getting a handle on this pandemic. How did you
Yep.
survive it, and how did it subsequently change you in the way that you do things?
Okay, perfect. I'm realizing we are now connected. Let me disconnect with the world so I don't get a wonderful offer to fly to Tahiti at a
Right.
discount rate in the middle of our conversation. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know how much you remember about my story, because I'm sure a lot of people have reached out, but for me, the pandemic was really actually 4 years after our life had been majorly disrupted by a boulder falling on my daughter.
Yeah.
So it was so a previous business that I had had for decades was all but destroyed because it was a seasonal business. So I was really in the midst of believing I needed to resuscitate the old business. I was now a 24/7 caregiver. People were kind of getting in my face and asking me to speak and asking me to coach on this all this inner game stuff that I had shared in the middle of the boulder. And I was determined to prove to the world I am not a speaker and I definitely am not a coach. Well, when COVID hit, um, all of a sudden the entertainment business, which had been my other business, was kaput for literally like 2.5 years. So I started dipping my toe in the water, going, well, maybe I could learn to speak and maybe I could share some of, this formula that has worked so well. And it just absolutely took off to such an extent for me that by the time the entertainment business was coming back, I was kind of in a position of I love you, but I have found my passion.
Yeah.
And it's so for me, um, it really has been a big part of this churn that led me in a direction that I'd been searching for all my entire life, but I never suspected could be something that was such an integral part of really who I am and what I love doing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like looking for love in all the wrong places.
Right.
And professionally, I think it's not, I think a lot of us do that because when something is such a passion, I think we're often scared of it because
Yeah.
we feel like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be hard. And what if I discover I can't make money for it? Will it ruin this love affair? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Should I charge for something that I love?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Sure.
So um so I don't know if that kind of gives you some ideas and some background of kind of what to play with in our conversation.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And it's interesting because it sounds like you were almost groomed for this time based on what you went through 4 years prior. So, it seems like you already had a level of perspective and there was things that were already in motion that I mean, I'm not
For sure.
saying it's easier. That's not the right term, but at least you were in a place where
Yeah,
it's like having another child. When you have your first, you don't know what you're doing, and then when
right.
you have another one, you're better equipped.
Right. And interestingly enough, to your point, the way that I navigated the way that I did through my what intersection with this boulder and my daughter was because as when I took a pause for a moment, which I had to because it took place in Colombia, South America, I was on this plane and I realized after I kind of got through the perfect storm of every negative emotion you can imagine, I realized that this was not the first boulder in my life. I mean, I had been a single mom pretty much all my life, a mompreneur on top of it. So I'm trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
I've been in a couple of abusive relationships on top of it. So I've been beating myself up for like, how did you possibly allow yourself to get into these with your children, that kind of thing. But the kind of the profound majesty of it all was when I had a moment to slow down. I realized that those unforgivable moments in my life, the things that were really tough to feel grateful for, um, were actually the things that had queued me up to go questing for learning how other people successfully face their insurmountable challenges and emerged as bigger, bolder versions of themselves. So by the time this real significant boulder hit, I was able to say, game on.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, let's rock this.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Well, let's put a spotlight at you talked about being a mompreneur, you're a speaker and you're a best-selling author, but let's put the spotlight on right now. If
Yep.
we were in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I am on paper, I am a coach. I'm a speaker. I'm a best-selling author. But what I like to say is that I am in the business of helping people come alive.
Yeah,
I help someone discover their potential that has been hiding in their blind spot, and I help them amplify it by getting out of their own way and discovering what is it going to take to help you achieve the things that right now you are telling yourself is
yeah.
impossible.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
At third grade, I had just started ballet, but let's fast forward, let's say fifth grade.
Yeah,
In fifth grade, I was on pardon the point, I was on point
yeah.
for becoming a principal dancer with the New York City Ballet.
Okay.
And that was the dream.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a story behind why I didn't go into that, but it depends on how many little side streets along the journey you want to take. But
Well,
that,
yeah. No, we can go down on side streets, and that's what I kind of want to get to. Like, how
yeah.
did you get these seeds of motivation that not only you're helping people, but you're growing and evolving yourself? Where were you born and raised, and how did all this become you?
So I had always had a passion for really helping people. I mean, that's always been a part of me. I mean, I had my first major tricycle accident at about the age of 2 trying to avoid an anthill. I mean, that was kind of who I was.
Yeah,
And I have been some shape or form of vegetarian, pescatarian for like 45 years. So
yeah,
a long time. I raised my kids that way. So there has the empathy meter within me is really, really, really high.
yeah,
However, since it was such an integral part of me, I either allowed other people to steer me away from it as a career, saying it would be too hard. No one makes a living doing things like that. And so, as a result of that first dream, where I knew in my heart, I knew in my soul that I was on this planet to be a ballet dancer, and everything was lining up. I was in New York City Ballet's Nutcracker production as a child. And then, just as my parents were deciding to divorce, and the question was, do I go to a prep school, being an only child, so they don't have to argue about where I will spend my time or what happens? Um, I walked into what should have been a shoe-in audition for me with my beloved ballet teacher of many, many years. My entire life as a ballet dancer. And everyone knew that I was going to be the little match girl. She wouldn't even look at me.
mm,
And not only did I not get cast in the role of the little match girl, she put me in the chorus with all the little girls. And I was devastated. And so I believed that I would never again allow that little voice to mislead me. And so rather than anytime I was tempted to chase anything that looked like a dream, or anytime my little voice spoke up, I was like, you are the enemy. I will not listen to you. Now, ironically, I discovered in my 50s, that the reason that I had not gotten that role was because my father had been late to pay the bill. So it changed my entire kind of pursuit. But how this led me was I spent so much time chasing a living that I really l- forgot about how important it is to how to understand how to choose to live. In other
Yeah.
words, how to be fully alive. And that's when the boulder dropped, kind of at the pinnacle of all of this. And, it was just a string of asking why. Why was I making these choices that were not working? Why was I struggling so much? Why was I the single, why? But in the most profound way, thankfully, from having in Georgetown fallen in love with Socrates and Plato, the why always led me in the direction of the inner game, because that was always the common denominator. Anyone who overcame an insurmountable obstacle, it was always because they had learned how to play a powerful inner game. And the people that I admired, whether it was someone like Oprah or JFK, and these amazing, speeches that they would give, they were always they are ordinary people who just responded to their own boulders in extraordinary ways. And so that all came together and became the formula that now I have trained literally thousands of other people in today. And one of the most profound things that I discovered is this work on the inner game it is a do it yourself. Like, no one can come in and Vulcan mind meld you, but it's not a do it yourself. In other words, you can do it as an island isolated from the world. You need your mentors. You need to be willing to give up the belief that I should be able to do this on my own.
Yeah.
You need to be open so that you can be filled. I mean, it's a proximity question, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to try to struggle your life and risk being one of those who looks back feeling like you never lived? Or do you humble yourself and say, maybe there's a reason that there are other people on this planet?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What's the best speech that you ever seen in your life in person? What was the best speech?
Thomas Banyako, who is a Hopi Indian, he he was talking years ago when I was younger. Um, he was talking about the Hopi prophecies. It was incredible, and it was so kind of deep and profound, right up there, of course. And the reason I didn't go there immediately is because I don't consider it a speech per se, but um, Esther Hicks with the law of attraction, her trainings and insights have been the bedrock of really. And I've studied NLP, neuro linguistic programming. I've read Socrates, Hobbes. I've studied Aikido, the Japanese martial art. I've learned about energy. I've learned just about anything and everything you possibly can. Dr. Joe Dispenza, that kind of stuff about the inner game. And it all comes together. That's why I don't call it mindset, because mindset's part of it. But um, the Esther Hicks, her teachings, her communications are incredibly powerful, of really how to find the harmony between what I call the epic three now in my book, 100 Days of Epic. It's really our focus, our language, and our imagination, which I call our envisioning. And those are the three masteries. We can master those within our inner game. Then for me, I find that it's like we're turbocharged, and that's when we start achieving things that previously felt impossible.
So when you launch your podcast, if you could
Mhm.
have a dream guest, anybody on the planet that you could interview that you would love to talk to, who would it be?
Hmm. Well, see, that's an interesting question because I think many people have their brilliances,
Yeah,
right? So, Esther Hicks would definitely be up there for
sure.
sure. Lisa Nichols would be up there. Um, you know, Oprah would be up there. Um, many of the inward thinkers are the one are would definitely I would want them because my podcast is going to be called How to Choose to Live.
Yeah,
So therefore, even people like Mark Hyman, who are into the integrative medicine, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, I believe that we live in a time, yes, where the media is accentuating the turmoil and some of the danger out there. And yet we also live in a time where we have some amazing transformational personalities
yeah,
and we have some deep questing going on. And so I think that this is where the world of podcasts has the opportunity to really get to the core of things and be able to synergize the messages because I think a lot of the great people that I have heard, whether they be musicians or anything, will say, even though, yes, these words are coming through me, I feel like I'm almost transmitting these.
yeah,
I feel like it's been gifted to me and I am the interpreter. And so to pick one person would be challenging. Thus the concept of a podcast where you have
sure.
many.
No, no, no. And you had a lot of great names there too. So I'm curious in your work and your motivation and your drive, what
Mhm.
gets you up every day? What gets you to not only help others, but to also evolve yourself as a human?
Mm, um, it is energizing to me because literally I love, 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 love being able to help people see what most people a minimum of years have been so angry at themselves for not being able to see. And they have these little, it's as if you put a fruit fly under the microscope and you you really honed in on it so intensely that now it looks like Godzilla. And now you are comporting yourself and your life as this Godzilla is part of your world. To be able to pull that zoom lens back and help people really see that it isn't in spite of these boulders that you are achieving things. It is thanks to these boulders that you are discovering your capacity to soar.
Yeah,
And so to be able to do that for people, the look on their face, there's one process I take them through, which is mapping out the Epic You story, which is so releasing and so profoundly insightful for them that, I mean, I've seen the manliest of men become very emotional because we're just not used to allowing ourselves to say that perspective of ourselves is objective.
right.
And
So let
so that's what propels me.
for
And I go
sure.
to sleep. And here's the thing. I don't just wake up excited. I go to bed excited.
Yeah,
I don't, at the end of the day, I don't feel like, oh my God, I've coached 7 people today. I am exhausted. I just need to chill. Don't talk to me. I'm going to, put on my headphones and realign, right? I'm energized.
sure.
And even people that some might say, "Oh, they're a little bit harder to coach, aren't they?" It's like, yeah, they are. And so their potential to break through is, I mean, just imagine the more they chip away at this, the more potential that will be amplified.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's been your favorite fan letter you've gotten from your book?
Oh my gosh. Um, I have gotten so many different variations. There are three standouts. One was actually a fan encounter where Skylar and I were actually locally going through this cool little market, and a gentleman. This was years ago. This was like 2017. Um, and there was a gentleman who was doing a tasting of his homemade tomato sauces. And he stopped us and he said, "Are you Meredith and Skylar?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." He shared that he had been reading, my posts, which were on Facebook, which ultimately became Sky is the Limit book.
Yeah.
Um, and he said, "Your call to action to tell us that if we wanted to support Skylar, that we should go out there and live our impossible dreams." I launched this. This was part of the inspiration, this line. Now, Yo Mama sauces are in Whole Foods, are in Fresh Market, are all over the place. And to see this man really succeed is incredible.
Yeah.
Um, Another one was a woman who said that it really has helped her. She had had a tough time processing. Her sister was one of those who disappeared in that very famous tsunami years and years ago on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And her sister had completely disappeared, and she'd really, it had been impossible for her to process. And yet, thanks to reading a lot of the things, she was able to really kind of align and come together with that. As far as the coaching goes, I have so many, and the speaking, I have so many people who say that it has been life changing, that has been the fuel to help me overcome what was my own self-identification naivete, where I said, I am not a speaker. I am the person you put up on stage if you want to mess up the introduction of your speaker. That is how bad a speaker I am. Do not consider me as a speaker. And so it was these stories that helped me realize that if I was able to help one person in that audience, that mission accomplished,
Yeah.
right? I was not there for the haters, other than maybe to just rub a little bit of sandpaper to make them notice.
Yeah.
And what they did with that noticing, that's up to them. But my mission is to know where my focus is right now. And that is not only having a compelling future, but a compelling moment,
Yeah.
because we never live this moment again.
So you have to give out good advice to people. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I have ever gotten, oh my gosh, I've gotten so much wisdom from so many people. So, on a very trite sense, one of the most seemingly insignificant pieces of advice that I got, that literally rocked my world, changed the way I showed up in the day, that I use with my clients in the language category, was to challenge yourself to get rid of the word "but" in your vocabulary, unless you deliberately need to use that word and only that word. Otherwise, try replacing it with the word "so,"
Yeah.
S-O. And what I realized first and foremost was how often I would start to create momentum going forward, and then here comes the "but," and that
Yeah.
throws me backwards.
Yeah.
So that was huge. The other, though, a bit more, um, was a bit more piece of advice, was really, um, to be don't forget the joie de vivre, the joy of being alive, right? Don't forget the joie de vivre. And rather than feeling the desperation in the moment, look for the play,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's flow versus flaw. One
Yeah.
letter makes a big difference, right? And focus on the flow and the what if. And that has been, again, that has been a huge shift. And one of the things that Esther Hicks talks about is really staying in front of things, staying in front of things. We are not here to fix the past. We are here to create a powerful present that guides us into an even more powerful future.
Yeah. So, of all the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
My children,
Yeah.
my children, for
Yeah.
sure. One of the most hysterical moments was um, when I was a single mom and my son, who's the oldest, was in third grade and there was a parent teacher conference. And this very sweet, well-intentioned woman said, "Oh my gosh, I love your son. And I had no idea he was from a broken family." And I just I couldn't help but giggle and smile. I
Yeah.
mean, clearly this woman didn't quite realize that political correctness scale,
Right.
not so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
But it really, my children are what will carry things forward. Professionally, I think it's overcoming my fear and the way that I have defined myself in the past. My choice, I didn't realize it was my choice, but it was my choice. I define myself as someone who had incredible fear of heights for the longest time. I define myself as someone whose abusive relationship made it impossible for me to drive on the highway. It was up to me and ultimately my inner game to get beyond that, which I did. But to overcome I call them the baby elephant collars, right? The things that were really smart assessments at a particular time in our life, they were the best choice perhaps at that time. The flaw is to believe that they're a trend, that they always will be the best choice, and to never revisit them and realize that now you are in a place where you potentially have infinitely more power than you did when you were in that baby elephant phase of your life. So overcoming my various fears professionally, and there are always fears along the road, as you know, whether you're in the corporate world or whether you're in the entrepreneurial world. The moment you get up here, then all of a sudden it's like the whack-a-mole game, right?
Yep.
Here comes a new one, wah! And you're
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
see that one coming.
Yep.
Right.
For sure. For sure. So let me ask you this. If anyone out there wants to get your books, they want to
Yeah.
learn more about you, anything about your world, reach out. How do they do it?
So I'm definitely all over social media. So you can find, and I'm fairly certain you're going to be dropping the links
Oh,
in
yeah.
the show notes.
Uh-huh.
But it's Meridith with two eyes. So look for me with two eyes. Otherwise, if you just Google me with two E's, you might come up with dead people for all I
Right.
know. So two eyes. And then both of my books, 100 Days of Epic, which is actually gamified, is on Amazon. And then the original, like the story of the boulder, the first 4 months, the sky is the limit, is also on Amazon. And if you are watching this and you are realizing that you might be one of those who is stuck on the hamster wheel, then I would invite you, because you are so smart to be listening to this podcast. And if you need to go out and share this podcast, not just this episode, but the entire podcast with
Yes.
your peeps, then I would welcome you to go to my website, gritmindsetacademy.com, and you will see there is a slot where you can have a 20-minute brainstorming session with me, definitely with me, not one of, as they say in the cartoon world, my minions. Um, definitely with me where I will help you strategize. And if there's a way that I can help you finally amplify your own potential or even identify what that is, I'll let you know. Or if there's a way I can point you in another direction, I'm happy to do that too.
I love
So
it.
yeah, yeah. So
Perfect.
stay connected and
Yes.
keep listening to this podcast.
Yes, and yours too when it comes out. I'm very
Yes.
excited, and this has been wonderful, Meredith. Thank you so much for your energy, for your story, for your courage. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Booyah,
Absolutely.
everybody.